Part 2 of The Ethical Engineer by Harry Harrison. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Reading by Greg Marguerite. Part 2 of The Ethical Engineer by Harry Harrison. Chapter 4. It did not kill him at once, but stood staring down at him. And as the slow seconds ticked by and Jason was still alive, he forced himself to consider this menace that appeared from the blackness. "K'i vi sta'el," the creature said, and for the first time Jason realized it was human. The meaning of the question picked at the edge of his exhausted brain. He felt he could almost understand it, though he had never heard the language before. He tried to answer, but there was only a hoarse gargle from his throat. "Ven ke'en torkoi ripidu." More lights sprang from the darkness inland, and with them the sound of running feet. As they came closer, Jason had a cleaner look at the man above him and could understand why he had mistaken him for some inhuman creature. His limbs were completely wrapped in lengths of stained leather, his chest and body protected by thick and overlapping leather plates covered with blood-red designs. Over his head was fitted the cochlea-shaped shell of some animal, spiraling to a point in front. Two small openings had been drilled in it for eye holes. Great finger-long teeth had been set in the lower edge of the shell to heighten the already fearsome appearance. The only thing at all human about the creature was the matted and filthy beard that trickled out of the shell below the teeth. There were too many other details for Jason to absorb so suddenly. Something bulky slung behind one shoulder, dark objects at the waist. A heavy club reached and prodded Jason in the ribs, but he was too close to unconsciousness to resist. A guttural command halted the torchbearers a full 5 meters from the spot where Jason lay. He wondered vaguely why the armored man had not let them approach closer, since the light from their torches barely reached this far. Everything on this planet seemed inexplicable. For a few moments Jason must have lost consciousness, because when he looked again the torch was stuck in the sand at his side, and the armored man had one of Jason's boots off and was pulling at the other. Jason could only writhe feebly, but not prevent the theft. For some reason he could not force his body to follow his will. His sense of time seemed to have altered as well, and though every second dragged heavily by, events occurred with startling rapidity. The boots were gone now, and the man fumbled at Jason's clothes, stopping every few seconds to glance up at the row of torchbearers. The magnetic seals were alien to him. The sharp teeth sewn into the leather over his knuckles dug into Jason's flesh as he struggled to open the seals or tear the resistant metal cloth. He was growling with impatience when he accidentally touched the release button on the medkit and it dropped into his hand. The shining gadget seemed to please him, but when one of the sharp needles slipped through his thick hand coverings and stabbed him, he howled with rage, throwing the machine down and grinding it into a splintered ruin in the sand. The loss of this irreplaceable device goaded Jason into motion. He sat up and was trying to reach the medkit when unconsciousness surged over him again. Sometime before dawn the pain in his head drove him reluctantly back to awareness. There were some foul-smelling hides draped over him that retained a little of his body heat. He pulled away the stifling fold that covered his face and stared up at the stars, cold points of light that glittered in the frigid night. The air was a stimulant, and he sucked deep gasps of it that burned his throat but seemed to clear his thoughts. For the first time he realized that his disorientation had been caused by that crack on the head he had received when the ship crashed. His exploring fingers found a swollen rawness on his skull. He must have a brain concussion. That would explain his earlier inability to move or think straight. The cold air was numbing his face, and he willingly pulled the hairy skin back over his head. He wondered what had happened to Micah Salmon after the local thug in the horror outfit had bashed him with the club. This was a messy and unexpected end for the man after he had managed to survive the crash of the ship. Jason had no special affection for the undernourished zealot, but he did owe him a life. Micah had saved him after the crash, only to be murdered himself by this local assassin. Jason made a mental note to kill the man just as soon as he was physically up to it. At the same time, he was a little astonished at his reflexive acceptance of the need for this bloodthirsty atonement of a life for a life. Apparently his long stay on Pyrrus had trodden down his normal dislike for killing except in self-defense, and from what he had seen so far of this world, the Pyrran training would certainly be most useful. The sky showed gray through a tear in the hide, and he pushed it back to look at the dawn. Mikah Samon lay next to him, his head projecting from a covering fur. His hair was matted and caked with dark blood, but he was still breathing. "Harder to kill than I thought," Jason grunted as he levered himself painfully up on one elbow and took a good look at this world where his spaceship sabotage had landed him. It was a grim desert, lumped with huddled bodies like the aftermath of a battle at world's end. A few of them were stumbling to their feet, holding their skins around them, the only signs of life in that immense waste of gritty sand. On one side a ridge of dunes cut off sight of the sea, but he could hear the dull boom of waves on the shore. White frost rimmed the ground and the chill wind made his eyes blink and water. On the top of the dunes a remembered figure suddenly appeared, the armored man, doing something with what appeared to be lengths of rope. There was metallic tinkling, suddenly cut off. Mikah Samon groaned and stirred. "How do you feel?" Jason asked. "Those are two of the finest bloodshot eyeballs I have ever seen." "Where am I?" Now that is a bright and original question. I didn't pick you for the type who watched historical space operas on the TV. I have no idea where we are, but I can give you a brief synopsis of how we arrived here, if you're up to it. "I remember we swam ashore, then something evil came from the darkness, like a demon from hell. We fought." "And he bashed in your head. One quick blow, and that was about all the fight there was. I had a better look at your demon, though I was in no better condition to fight him than you are. He's a man dressed in a weird outfit out of an addict's nightmare, and appears to be the boss of this crew of rugged campers. Other than that, I have little idea of what's going on, except that he stole my boots, and I'm going to get them back if I have to kill him for them." "Do not lust after material things," Mikah intoned seriously. "And do not talk of killing a man for material gain. You are evil, Jason. And my boots are gone, and my clothes too." Mikah had thrown back his covering skins and made this startling discovery. "Belial!" he roared. "Asmodeus, Abaddon, Apollyon, and Beelzebub!" "Very nice," Jason said admiringly. "You really have been studying up on your demonology. Were you just listing them or calling on them for aid?" "Silence, blasphemer! I have been robbed!" He rose to his feet, and the wind whistling around his almost bare body quickly gave his skin a light touch of blue. "I'm going to find the evil creature that did this and force him to return what is mine." Mikah turned to leave, but Jason reached out and grabbed his ankle with a wrestling grip, twisted it, and brought the man thudding to the ground. The fall dazed him, and Jason pulled the skins back over the raw boned form. "We're even," Jason said. "You saved my life last night. Just now I saved yours. You're barehanded and wounded, while the old man of the mountain up there is a walking armory, and anyone with the personality to wear that kind of an outfit will kill you as easily as he picks his teeth. So take it easy and try to avoid trouble. There's a way out of this mess. There's a way out of every mess if you look for it, and I'm going to find it. In fact, I'm going to take a walk right now and start my research. Agreed?" A groan was his only answer, since Mikah was unconscious again, fresh blood seeping from his injured scalp. Jason stood and wrapped his hides about his body as some protection from the wind, tying the loose ends together. Then he kicked through the sand until he found a smooth rock that would fit inside his fist with just the end protruding, and thus armed made his way out through the stirring forms of the sleepers. Mikah was conscious again when Jason returned, and the sun was well above the horizon. The people were all awake now, a shuffling, scratching herd of about 30 men, women, and children. They were identical in their filth and crude skin wrappings, milling about with a random motion or sitting blankly on the ground. They showed no interest at all in the two strangers. Jason handed a tarred leather cup to Mike.